And we are live for Thursday night football. It is week 7. Can't believe it's week 7 already. I am pumped for tonight's game. We got a game, Jacksonville Jaguars playing in New Orleans against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints in this one are 2-point favorites. Excited to break this one down. Some really, really difficult Thursday night start sit decisions tonight, in my opinion, especially with 6 bye weeks this week. We have a brutal bye week this week, and it's going to make some of these start sits pretty tough tonight. I do think there are plenty of players you can start tonight in your fantasy lineups. We're live on TikTok. We're live on YouTube, guys. If you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. Rams D is fine this week. Yeah, I'm good with the Rams defense this week for sure. Would you start Atwell, Bourne, or Osborne? Yeah, that's just absolutely gross. You definitely cannot be starting Tutu Atwell. Right now, I think I'd probably go KJ Osborne personally with a lot of the receivers for the Pats coming back. What's going on, Kylo? How we doing? Thursday night football. Let's go. We got a free player prop tonight. We got people coming even before the live starts asking for the free player prop because, guys, I mean, we're 9-3, 75% on the free player props this season. Hard to do much better than that. We cashed pretty easily on the Garrett Wilson prop last week, and I do have a free player prop for us tonight. Let's get right to that. It is Michael Thomas, over 4.5 receptions tonight. Really like this one. He's had at least 4 catches in every single game this season. A really, really good floor for a prop line set at 4.5. The Jaguars are worse in the secondary than they are against the run. Do expect Derek Carr to throw a lot today, just like he did last game. Derek Carr is coming off his best game of the season by far, setting season highs and passing attempts, passing yards, and completions in their last game against the Texans. Why is Rams D? Sorry, it should be Jaguars D. Let me change this. I'll be right back. On the TikTok live, I got Rams defense in there. Jags D. Let me change this for you guys. I got this on the YouTube live too. Rams defense. You can tell that's not supposed to be in there. I actually do think the Rams defense is a good start this week too. All right, we're going back. All right, we got the Jags D now, not the Rams D. I'll fix that on the YouTube live too. It's going to be a fun game tonight, guys. I got a few interesting Thursday night football stats for us as always. But yeah, I don't think either defense is a great start tonight, which feels weird considering this stat here. The Saints are the last team in the NFL. The Saints are the only team in the NFL that have had every single one of their games go under their total. Every single game has gone under the over-under. I kind of think tonight's game goes over on a short week. Trevor Lawrence is questionable in this game, though. That is a really, really big question mark for this game. It does seem like he's trending towards playing. But during this live stream, we're going to get confirmation one way or the other if Trevor Lawrence is in fact playing. It looks like he's doing well movement-wise in this pregame warm-up I'm seeing. I do think he's going to play. I'm scared to start Trevor Lawrence tonight, coming off the knee injury and not a great matchup. He is startable if you really need someone, though. Do I start Rashee Rice or Madison in PPR? Yeah, I'd lean Rashee Rice this week, but we'll be prioritizing the Thursday night starts. It's, of course, tonight. Sam, your haircut makes you look 12. That's what I was going for, Rodney. Trying to take years off my age at the age I'm getting to at this point. Sad stuff all around. But yeah, I'm trying to look as young as possible. What's up, Sam? Hope all is well as usual. Do you like Ridley tonight? And would love to hear what you do for what you're doing for props tonight? Yeah, so Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, I think they're both a little bit closer to fringe starts than must starts tonight, but I have them both in the must start category in a week where there's 6 bye weeks. Either of these guys can have big games. Let's actually compare these two. I have a comparison ready to show on the TikTok live here, and I'll pull it up on the YouTube live as well. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now, but Christian Kirk is the better option, according to Walter and according to me. This is from the WalterPicks app in the iOS and Android app store for free. And Christian Kirk has had the better season so far. If we go down this comparison, Christian Kirk's averaging more yards per game, more touchdowns per game, more routes per game. He has more fantasy points per game as well. And really, the only stat that Calvin Ridley's beating Christian Kirk in is air yards per game, which is interesting. I still think Ridley maybe has a higher weekly ceiling than Christian Kirk. But yeah, Christian Kirk's the safer play and has a similar ceiling still too. All right, we're going to compare these two on the YouTube live right now too. And yeah, Christian Kirk, a bit better projection in PPR leagues. And yeah, he's just been a bit better overall this season. But yeah, I think they both can be started tonight. I think both guys have 100-plus yard and 1+ touchdown upside in this game and really every week. It's not a fantastic matchup for them. The Saints have ranked 13th best against receivers this season. Chris Olave or Christian Kirk. Yeah, it's got to be Chris Olave over Christian Kirk for sure. Chris Olave is just locked in. He looked fully healthy last week too. I was not sure how much that toe injury was going to be bothering him. Let me add Olave here to this comparison on the YouTube live. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now, by the way, guys. And on the YouTube live, I can pull your comments up on the screen and I can share my screen to my computer where we can do a lot of comparisons and analysis like on the screen. It's a better viewing experience. I'm telling you. Link to that's right in the TikTok bio. We are going to be live for the next hour, breaking down this game, getting to as many start sits, of course, for the Thursday night game. Yeah, Olave's got to be started. I think over Christian Kirk and Ridley. Walter has Christian Kirk ahead of Chris Olave. I think I disagree with that. Yeah, Olave's coming off a 16.6 point game, 16-point game, 96% route percent. He had 10 targets last week. He looks fully healthy, 157 air yards. Christian Kirk's definitely had his games as well. He's coming off a slightly worse game, but he's had at least 14 points now, or at least 13 points basically in every game over the last 5 games for Christian Kirk. So yeah, definitely a safer floor for him. It feels like then Calvin Ridley. It does seem like Trevor Lawrence is going to play. I have him as a must bench though, just coming off the knee injury and not a amazing matchup for himself. And tonight, the free player prop though, it is Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions. I really like this one. This is a screenshot from the WalterPicks app, which you can find in the TikTok bio. If you're watching live on TikTok, if you're watching live on YouTube, I'll just open it up on the WalterPicks app right now, and we'll look up Michael Thomas here. Walter has Michael Thomas projected right around this line, but Michael Thomas has at least 4 receptions in every single game this season. And even if you go back to games, going back to last year, he's got at least 4 receptions in those games too. In his last 10, he's got at least 4 receptions in all of those. And this line is set at 4.5. So I really like the over Michael Thomas, over 4.5 receptions tonight. We are 9-3, 75% on the free player props this season. I mean, it's hard to get much better than that, guys. Lock in Michael Thomas. As always, if you're playing the Pick'em game on Sleeper and you're going to take this Michael Thomas line, use code Walter on Sleeper. You'll get a 100% deposit match up to $100 if you're depositing for the first time. Yeah, again, Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions. That's the free player prop of the night. All right, let's get back to some of these start sits in the TikTok live and in the YouTube live. We got a comment here. Start 2, Puka, Olave, Mike Evans. Mike Evans against the Falcons, not a great matchup for him this week. I think I would go Olave over Mike Evans, and I'm definitely playing Puka over everybody tonight. All the receivers tonight. I play Puka Nacua over. I'd play Puka Nacua over Olave, Michael Thomas, Christian Kirk, and Calvin Ridley. Kittle or Ingram. Yeah, that's a really, really close one. I think I lean towards Kittle personally because the ceiling is higher with Kittle, but the floor is absolutely higher with Evan Ingram. So super, super close one. I think they're back-to-back in the WalterPicks app tight end rankings and in my rankings this week too. But if you're going for the ceiling, it's got to be Kittle in a pretty good matchup against the Vikings on Monday night. Plus there's injuries with CMC and Debo. I think that raises his ceiling too. The floor is lower still for Kittle though. We've already seen, 1-2 point games from George Kittle. Why is Rashid Shaheed a must bench? Yeah, this game's just not projected to be high scoring enough for me to be starting a wide receiver 3. Shaheed has been really, really efficient. I think he's a really, really good wide receiver in the NFL. I think he still ranks top 20 in yards per route run. Let me pull up the numbers here. For Rashid Shaheed, not top 20 anymore. He's 42nd yards per route run, but he's 4th in the NFL in yards per reception at 18.6. But yeah, he had 6 targets last game, but 2 targets the game before that. Like he could easily only have 2 targets tonight. We've seen a 6-point game, 4-point game, 6-point game from Rashid Shaheed. He does have an interesting ceiling though in deeper leagues. He's definitely not an auto bench. Sorry, I missed that comment on the YouTube live. Devontae Adams and Ford for Pacheco and Ridley. Love the app, which says to do the trade. Devontae Adams and Ford for Pacheco. Yeah, I think that's fine. Pacheco is projecting really, really great right now with his usage on that offense. Ridley is definitely a worse option than Devontae Adams rest of season, in my opinion, but I don't think it's that crazy of a gap there. Trade Kupp and Olave for Kupp. I don't think that trade makes sense. Amari Cooper or Adam Thielen. Yeah, you're not benching Thielen right now, but I thought the Panthers were on bye this week. I'm pretty sure they are. Yeah, they are. Start Michael Thomas or Amari Cooper. Yeah, I think I'd go Coop over Michael Thomas this week. Hey, Sam, I traded Pollard for Puka and Achane. I have Kamara already. How do we feel? Pollard for Puka and Achane. Yeah, I like it. If you needed a receiver, I think this is a good move. I don't love trading away Tony Pollard. He's a top 5 running back, But if you are likely to be in the playoffs, I just posted, by the way, my longest TikTok video ever of all time yesterday. And it was 19 players that I think you should trade for in fantasy football. HN was one of these guys. Puka actually, I believe, was one of these guys as well in the 19 guys I laid out that I think makes sense to trade for. And one of the big things you got to understand with trades is you got to optimize to have the best possible playoff team in your league once you are confident you're going to make the playoffs. And getting HN does that. I think HN and Pollard, assuming HN can get back to full health, not that crazy of a gap once HN comes back, especially in terms of their ceiling. Hey, Sam, Ridley Palmer or KJ Osborne? Yeah, you got to go Ridley, I think, in this one. This is a case where I'm starting Calvin Ridley over Josh Palmer, over KJ Osborne. The Chiefs-Chargers game, I want pieces of that game, and Josh Palmer is absolutely a piece of that game. The Chiefs secondary hasn't been bad this season. I still think that game is exciting, but I would still start Ridley tonight over Josh Palmer. Hey, Sam, Ridley over Palmer. Yeah, I'm going Ridley over Palmer. Going Ridley over Zay Flowers. I'm going Ridley over too. So there. Let me get to a few of these games this week because I think this is relevant for some of the Thursday night questions. What's up, Sam? Do we trust Devontae Smith this week, or do I go back to Jacoby Myers again? Yeah, I might go Jacoby, considering that Eagles game. I think that's the Sunday night game this week, and Devontae Smith is expected to play, but he's dealing with a hamstring injury in practice. I think Jacoby's probably a bit safer, even though Jacoby's playing with Brian Hoyer or Aiden O'Connell this week, which is not great. Let me get to this information, though, about this week, because, guys, Weatherman Sam's coming out a little early this week because he's got it. And I'm for the people. I'm for everyone in this live. Thank you all for being tuned in right now. Seriously, appreciate it. Hit the follow button and the subscribe button if you're watching live on YouTube. Really, guys, appreciate everybody in here. But there's some serious weather to be concerned about this week, so we got to get to this. The Commanders and Giants game, you really can't start anyone in these passing offenses right now, in my opinion. Obviously, the weather forecast can change in some of these games. We're still like 3-4 days out of these games. This can definitely change, but right now it's looking very, very bleak. Commanders and Giants, sustained winds at 20 miles an hour, wind gusts around 35 miles an hour in that Giants-Commanders game. So I want nothing to do with the receivers in this game. And Terry McLaurin, I think, gets a huge bump down. Jahan Dotson already wasn't startable. I think that Curtis Samuel's not startable. Wan'Dale Robinson, I'm pretty nervous about as well. Darren Waller, Logan Thomas, all these guys I think need to be knocked down in rankings this week. Bills and Patriots and Lions and Ravens. That's 4 more teams in a week that has 6 byes. We got 6 teams with significant wind this week. The Commanders and Giants are the worst game wind-wise. Then the Bills and Patriots, Lions and Ravens game. Both those games are looking at 20 mile an hour sustained winds, gusts up to 30 miles an hour. Very concerning for the passing offenses in this game. Josh Allen, Steph Diggs, Gabe Davis, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, Zay Flowers, Lamar. All these guys I think need to be, you got to be concerned about their ability to throw the ball in this game, in these games. Lamar, you can still start him. He's going to run enough that he's definitely still startable. Mark Andrews, the elite options in these offenses, you still got to start. Steph Diggs, I'm still starting. Josh Allen, I would still start. Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm still starting all those guys. But these games are going to be lower scoring. They're going to struggle to pass if this ends up coming to fruition. The other game that has potentially scary wins is the Sunday night game between the Eagles and the Dolphins. That game, though, because it's later in the day, looks like it's not going to be overly concerning winds. It's going to be closer to the 10 to 15 mile an hour range and not gusts over 25. So I'm not actually that concerned about that game, but there's some wind to watch in that game too. So there's a lot of wind to be concerned about this week. And I think that is a good reason, if you're on the edge with some of those games, if you're on the edge with some of the guys in those wind games versus like Calvin Ridley or Christian Kirk or Evan Ingram, obviously Kamara and Etienne, Olave, on the edge with any of those games that are going to be windy versus those guys, go with the guys tonight. There's not going to be any wind tonight in the Dome. Ingram or Mayer. Yeah, it's got to be Evan Ingram over Michael Mayer. I know Mayer's coming off his best game of his career, by far, but Evan Ingram's been great, guys. Evan Ingram's a solid top 6 tight end week in and week out right now. T-Law, or pick up Watson off waivers. Yeah, you got to go T-Law over Watson. Watson supposedly might play or supposedly practiced. Who knows what's going on with Deshaun Watson. I have no confidence he's even going to play this week at this juncture. Hey, Sam, not Thursday Night Football, but we got a trade question here. I got you. I'll talk about Calvin Ridley in a second and everyone else in this game. Should I trade away JT and Ridley for Eckler PPR? Yeah, I would do this. I would definitely do this. You're getting the best player in the trade. You have Myers, McLaurin, Chase, and Dell for other receivers. I think this is fine. You're getting a top 3 running back rest of the season. I think Eckler, depending on how serious the injury ends up being for CMC, Eckler might be the RB1 rest of the season. I think I have him at RB2 right now. His usage was great last week. I know the game didn't end up being a huge fantasy day for him, but Eckler is a top 3 option rest of the season. Okay, so we're starting Travis Etienne. We're starting Alvin Kamara tonight for sure. I think those are really obvious. I won't talk too much about those. Jamal Williams is back in this game. I'm nervous about him stealing goal line carries from Kamara, but with the targets he's seeing, you still got to start Alvin Kamara. Evan Ingram, top 6 tight end so far this season. Let me pull up some of these numbers for Evan Ingram, because not only has he been extremely consistent, but he's been a really, really valuable player for your fantasy teams. He has the 3rd most targets among all tight ends. He's 5th in route participation. Guys, Evan Ingram has the most receptions among all tight ends. He leads all tight ends in yards after the catch. He's top 4 in receiving yards this season. He hasn't had that many air yards, like not very many deep passes this season for Evan Ingram. But yeah, I mean, he's scoring 11 fantasy points per game. That ranks 6th this year, and he's got a pretty solid floor. And you cannot say that about very many tight ends. So you got to be starting Evan Ingram for sure tonight. Michael Thomas. Yeah, I think he's a must start tonight if you are struggling with buys. I don't think you need to force really any of these receivers in tonight. I think Olave is the best one, and then Kirk, then Michael Thomas, then Calvin Ridley is how I would rank the receivers tonight. I don't think you need to force them in, but I do think the floor is solid for MT and Christian Kirk, and I think the ceiling is high enough for Calvin Ridley to justify starting him. We've seen the high ceiling from Ridley this season. This is a game where the Jaguars are 2-point underdogs. Trevor Lawrence is questionable, but is expected to play. That's where those stars were. That should be next to Trevor Lawrence's name in the TikTok live, if you're watching live on TikTok. But yeah, we've seen, boom and bust games from Calvin Ridley. That's what we're getting with Ridley. His floor is right around 7 fantasy points. It's not a terrible floor, but it's not great, obviously. But we've seen his ceiling. He's gone over 20 points twice this season. Calvin Ridley ranks 16th in the NFL in air yards. Like when he's getting targeted, these are deep targets, valuable targets down the field that have touchdown potential. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of upside with Calvin Ridley still tonight. I think he is startable. All right, let's get to some specific start sits though. In this one, I'll pull up the player prop of the day on the YouTube live and pull some comments up here. All right, hey Sam, Thursday night football question. Would you start Michael Thomas over Christian Watson or Tyler Lockett? Yes, so Tyler Lockett is questionable right now this week. He's dealing with, I think he was limited with a hamstring injury, if I recall correctly. That has me just a tiny bit nervous on a Thursday night. But I'm starting Christian Watson over Michael Thomas. Watson gets the Broncos this week. I mean, smash matchup for Watson. He looked finally back at full health last week, and he just missed on a couple really deep targets. He had 174 air yards, Christian Watson, last week. That is elite air yard usage. Definitely starting Christian Watson here over Michael Thomas and over Tyler Lockett. Ayuk or Kamara? Ayuka, the Bazooka, or Alvin Kamara? Oh, man, yeah, that's actually really tough. Let's do this comparison actually here on the YouTube live. If you're on the TikTok live, come to the YouTube live. I can share my screen. Link is right in the TikTok bio. It's just as free. I'm telling you, it's a better viewing experience. All right, we're going to go to ETN. So I think it was Ayuk versus Kamara. And God, you just can't bench Alvin Kamara. And I really want to start Ayuk this week too. And yeah, wow, Ayuk does project better than Alvin Kamara. If that's a PPR league, you can't really bench Ayuk this week, guys. There's potentially probably at least one of Debo or CMC is not going to play. And even if they play, I mean, we've already seen Debo play at less than 100%. He was a full decoy the last time Debo played at less than 100%. Definitely possible. And he's got a fantastic matchup here against the Vikings. So yeah, you're not benching Ayuk. I think that's fine. I think you can bench Kamara for Ayuk, but yeah, in general, you really can't be starting Alvin Kamara. Yeah, so I think Lawrence is a bench. He's coming off the knee injury. Let me read the latest on Lawrence. But guys, even, ignore the knee injury that has Trevor Lawrence questionable for this game. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have a single game this season over 20 fantasy points. Not a single one. He's been like between 14 and 20 or 14 and 19 points in all but one game. And he's had some good matchups. He got the Colts twice, the Texans, and the Saints are not his easiest matchup of the season tonight. So yeah, definitely a tad concerning for Trevor Lawrence. His fantasy outlook for the rest of the season, I think, is like a little bit bleak. He doesn't have the greatest schedule rest of the season, and he hasn't had any huge games. I think the bigger games will come, with the receivers he has, but not tonight against the Saints. Marquise Brown or Michael Thomas? Yeah, I'm going Marquise Brown over Michael Thomas. I think Brown is a really strong start this week against the Seahawks. That game is also projected to have rain. Ridley will score. Yeah, I like Ridley to score a touchdown tonight. I think that's very much in the cards. Marquise Brown or Michael Thomas? Yeah, I'd go Marquise Brown over Michael Thomas as well. Why start Carr against the Jags? Yeah, so the Jaguars have not been that great against quarterbacks this season. Let's compare these two guys. I think Walter likes Trevor Lawrence. Walter's the AI model, by the way, in the WalterPicks app, which is free to install, that I help build. It's going to help you with all your start sits and trades and player prop advice, DFS advice, literally everything you need in the WalterPicks app for free. But I digress. Walter likes Trevor Lawrence more than Derek Carr tonight. I like Derek Carr a little bit more just because I'm a little more nervous than Walter is about that knee injury for Trevor Lawrence. But Derek Carr's coming off his best game of the season, too. And again, the Jaguars, guys, they only ranked 23rd against quarterbacks this season. We've seen some good quarterback performances against the Jaguars. And yeah, by far the best game of the season for Derek Carr. Part of that game, they ran so many plays against the Texans, and they just could not score when they got near the end zone. This has been the problem for the Saints this season. But yeah, they ran 79 plays offensively last week. Derek Carr sets a season-high 50 passing attempts, season-high 32 completions, 353 passing yards last week, 518 air yards. For Derek Carr, he threw 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I mean, he should have had 4 touchdowns in this game with how much they were in the red zone. And yeah, he gets another plus matchup. This is a plus matchup for Derek Carr. He's surrounded by extremely talented offensive weapons: Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Michael Thomas. Very, very talented around him. The Jaguars rank bottom 12 against quarterbacks this season. So yeah, Derek Carr to me is a much better start than Trevor Lawrence tonight. I do like him a bit more. The Saints have been the 7th best team against quarterbacks this season, but they really haven't played very many good quarterbacks. So I think that does come with a small asterisk. They played Ryan Tannehill, Bryce Young, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Bailey Zappi / Mac Jones, and CJ Stroud. We've seen 2 quarterbacks go over 20 points against the Saints. That was Baker Mayfield and Jordan Love. So it's certainly possible we see a good Trevor Lawrence game, but yeah, just with a knee injury and him being questionable, I would rather not start him. I think there's plenty of decent QB options this week, even with the 6 buys. On the Jaguars side, we've seen 4 different quarterbacks go over 20 points against the Jaguars. They play better quarterbacks, but Anthony Richardson, Mahomes, Stroud, and Josh Allen all went over 20 points against the Jaguars. Even Gardner Minshew threw for 330 yards last week against the Jaguars. So I do like Derek Carr a decent amount tonight, and I'm nervous about Trevor Lawrence. Baker or Carr? Yeah, I'm going Carr over Baker. No thank you to Baker Mayfield against the Falcons. How do you feel about Kyle Pitts this week? Yeah, he's a boom bust option this week, just like he is going to be every single week. His over-under this week is 31.5 receiving yards. That is not very high. If he goes over it, though, he could go for 80. So the ceiling's there. It's enough there for Pitts that he's startable over most tight ends, but he is still a low floor option. Let's not kid ourselves. We've been down this road with Kyle Pitts before. So yeah, I think he is startable. Back-to-back games with over 14 PPR points now for Kyle Pitts. He's starting to heat up a little bit, but yeah, I still think that the 14% target share last week was a bit disappointing in a game that they threw a decent amount. All right, let's get back to some of these start-sits. Pittman or Michael Thomas? Yeah, you got to go with Michael Pittman over Michael Thomas. You got to go with Michael Pittman over Calvin Ridley, I think, too, this week. And I would probably go Michael Pittman over Christian Kirk also, but I think I'd go Olave over Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's a close one, but I don't think Geno Smith starting is necessarily bad for Michael Pittman. He's seen really elite usage with all quarterbacks this season. Hey, Sam, Geno or Carr? Yeah, so I lean Derek Carr personally over Geno. Walter has Geno much far higher up than Carr. Geno has a good matchup against the Cardinals, but I just see the Seahawks going super run heavy this week against the Cardinals, and I do think that game is projected to have a decent amount of rain as well, which I feel like could push the Seahawks to go even more run heavy. So yeah, I would lean Derek Carr. Sam, I'm in a 4-man league for big money. 4-man league is absolutely hilarious, Josh. And I love that there's big money involved in a 4-man league. Eckler, Jacobs, and Alvin Kamara. Who gets pushed to the bench? Eckler, Jacobs, Alvin Kamara. Yeah, so you're definitely not benching Alvin Kamara. Absolutely not. And I think this one's really close here between Walter's ranks, which I'll pull up here. And I think, yeah, Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs. It's got to be Kamara and Eckler. Look, they're 2 of the top 3 running backs here in Walter's rankings this week. And Josh Jacobs has a good matchup and should get good usage. The efficiency has just been so bad. Josh Jacobs has just been like a slightly better version of Najee Harris this season. It's been pretty ugly for him. Barkley, Taylor, or Moore, pick 2. Barkley, Taylor, or Moore. Yeah, Barkley and Taylor, I think, should be started this week. All right, let's get back to some of the Thursday nights here. Yeah, you're not benching Travis Etienne. This is the first Etienne question I've seen tonight. You're starting him over basically everybody. I think Pacheco versus Swift is close this week. I lean Swift, though, in that game against the Dolphins. His target volume has been so good. Hey, Sam, bye week is killing me. Yeah, we got 6 buys this week. The bye weeks are killing a lot of people. Is Monty or Devontae Smith playing? They're my only options, and I cannot drop anyone. Monty is not playing. David Montgomery is not going to play. Devontae Smith, I do think is going to play. He's on the right side of questionable, but he is questionable with a hamstring injury. The hamstrings are always a little bit scary. It can't drop anyone. And what defense should? Yeah, it's terrible when you can't drop anyone. But you might need to if you want to win this week. You might sometimes you're in that spot where how important is the win to you this week? I'm not dropping Monty or Devontae Smith, for example. But yeah, Monty, hopefully you can stash from the IR once he gets ruled out. Yeah, he's not going to play this week. What defense should I stream instead of Jags if you could give like 3 options? Yeah, so let's look at the defense projections here in the WalterPicks app, which are been pretty reliable for me. The Browns aren't going to be available in many spots. The Buccaneers, Rams, and Seahawks, I think all 3 of those are really good streaming defenses this week. Commanders are not terrible. The Giants' offensive line in complete shambles. Daniel Jones, I don't expect to play Cup and Nakua. Yeah, I love that. Why are we starting Ridley this week? Because Ridley ranks top 20 in the league in air yards. His ceiling is still really high. Yeah, I knew this comment was coming. We got a comment here. Why bench Trevor Lawrence but start Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk? And yeah, we get these questions, especially on the Thursday nights all the time. And, there was a case, I think it was week 1 even maybe. We had Mahomes whenever he played on Thursday night. Mahomes was a must start, but all the receivers were must benches. Tonight we got the receivers of must starts, but the quarterback's a must bench. And yeah, Trevor Lawrence dealing with a knee injury. He's questionable for the game. It does sound like he's going to play. So that's really like auto must bench territory for me if I have other good options. There's a lot of options I like way more than Trevor Lawrence this week. Brock Purdy being one of them. He's available in a lot of leagues. Christian Kirk or DJ Moore. Yeah, you can't bench DJ Moore. It's just such a gross situation though with the quarterback situation there in Chicago. Let's compare these two. Christian Kirk versus DJ Moore. I do think Kirk is a pretty high floor, high ceiling play tonight. He ranks wide receiver 16 in Walter's projections right now. And yeah, we were comparing Christian Kirk to DJ Moore, who's obviously having a huge season. But yeah, it's got to be Christian Kirk. Yeah, you go Christian Kirk over DJ Moore. We got Tyler, Bagent starting for the Bears, a Division II quarterback who actually peppered DJ Moore targets when he came into the game. So DJ Moore is definitely startable. But yeah, I'm starting Christian Kirk over him given the offensive situation there with the Bears. Deebo Samuel, I don't expect to play, and he's a must bench again. This is going to be the 3rd or 4th straight week I've had him as must bench. That's been something I've gotten right a lot this year. All right, here's the expectations for the game tonight. The Saints are 2-point favorites at home against the Jaguars. I am 46 and 47 against the spread this season. I'm going with the Saints -2 tonight. The player prop of the day. It's Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions. Guys, Michael Thomas, he's not a massive ceiling play tonight, but he's a pretty high floor option tonight. Michael Thomas, let me pull up the game logs here for MT, and I'll pull it up on the TikTok live here in a second too. We're live on TikTok and YouTube. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Seriously helps me out way more than you realize. If you're watching live on TikTok too, hit the follow button. All right, let's check this out. Michael Thomas, he has at least 4 receptions in every single game this season. And if you go back to last season, he's got at least 4 receptions in all those games too. So the floor tonight for Michael Thomas is 4 receptions. They're setting this line at 4.5 receptions. The Jaguars have not been that great against quarterbacks, against receivers. They're giving up the 11th most points to receivers this season. I mean, we've seen tons and tons and tons of receivers go over 4.5 receptions. We saw Michael Pittman do it. We saw Kadarius Toney do it. Tank Dell did it. Stephon Diggs did it. Gabe Davis did it. Last week, Michael Pittman and Josh Downs both went over 4.5 receptions. So yeah, I like Michael Thomas's floor a lot. The ceiling's just not that exciting because he's just not seeing any massive usage games. He has no games over 26% target share, over 28% target share. He has no games over 9 targets. So it feels like he's a high floor, kind of low ceiling option this season. I like Olave more than Michael Thomas tonight, but I really like the Michael Thomas prop over 4.5 receptions. We are 9-3 on the free player props on these lives this season. We got people coming back to these lives asking every single week, every single Thursday night, every single Sunday morning, what's the free player prop of the day? Today it's Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions. Also, if you haven't yet, guys, you get a 100% deposit match on Sleeper up to $100 if you use code Walter. It helps out the brand a ton. It's a way to support us. Plus, get a free $100. Then take the Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions prop line. The code to the Sleeper is in the YouTube description. Also, you don't even need the code. You don't even need the link. You just go to Sleeper, deposit, put code Walter in when you deposit. If it's the first time you're depositing, you get a 100% deposit match. All right, let's get more of these Thursday Night Football questions. All right, Michael Thomas or Zay Flowers? Yeah, so I'm going Michael Thomas over Zay Flowers, and I don't feel good about it, guys, but here's the reality of this week. There is some significant weather you absolutely need to be aware of, and I think it applies to this Thursday night because there's a lot of start-sit decisions with a lot of these players being asked. there's some significant wind that is going to impact games this week. Weatherman Sam is here to help you and to just bring to your attention what's going on here. So obviously the weather can change. There's still like 3 days out from these Sunday games, but right now it's looking bleak, and it's actually gotten a little bit worse from this morning to tonight when I check the weather. The Giants-Commanders game is the worst one, projected to have wind gusts around 35 miles an hour. No thank you to Terry McLaurin this week. No thank you to Logan Thomas. I don't want anything to do with Wan'Dale Robinson or Darren Waller. I'm very nervous for both offenses here, their ability to throw the ball. I expect a lot of Saquon Barkley, a lot of Brian Robinson, a lot of Antonio Gibson in this game. You cannot throw in wind gusts around 35 miles an hour, and definitely not if you're Sam Howell and Tyrod Taylor. The Bills and Patriots and the Lions and Ravens also have significant winds, sustained winds around 15 to 20 miles an hour, wind gusts as high as 30 miles an hour. I'm nervous about these games too. I think Zay Flowers, I'm starting the guys tonight over him. I think I would start Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Michael Thomas, and Chris Olave all over Zay Flowers because of the nervousness about the wind impacting this game. I think Zay Flowers can still be started. He probably will be a fringe start for me on the Sunday morning live because he's going to lead the team in targets, and he can do a lot with targets right around the line of scrimmage, which might not be very many deep targets for Zay Flowers this week. So I think his ceiling is a little bit capped. I'm still going to start Amon-Ra St. Brown over all the guys tonight. I'm still starting Stephon Diggs over all the guys tonight. You still start, I think, the elite options. But yeah, I lean towards all the receivers tonight over Zay Flowers because there's some significant wins. The last game to be aware of wind-wise is actually the Eagles-Dolphins game, the Sunday night game. That game is, though, right now not in a concerning area. In my opinion, it's like closer to the 10 to 15 mile an hour sustained wind range. Should I place Puka for Kenneth Walker? I would play Puka over. Oh God, man, Kenneth is a really good play, though, against the Cardinals, too. If this is PPR, though, I do kind of want to play Puka over Kenneth. It's definitely close. And yeah, Kyron Williams is out. Brian Robinson, you have a very good team. Wow. Yeah, I think you definitely should start Puka Nacua, though, if it's a PPR league. If it's not, I would go with Kenneth Walker. All right, we got to get to the Thursday night questions. Yeah, I'm playing Russ over T-Law. Is it worth holding on to Aaron Jones? Absolutely. He gets a great matchup this week against the Broncos. I'm Trevor Lawrence versus Sam Howell. Yeah, I'm leaning Sam Howell. I'm nervous about Lawrence, dealing with this knee injury. He does look okay in pregame, but it's also not a great matchup for him. Actually, no, just kidding. I'm going Trevor Lawrence over Sam Howell. Yeah, for sure. I've got to remind myself, guys, of the weather report I just gave. Sam Howell cannot be started this week. Absolutely not, in a game that has the worst projected wind of the week at 35 mile an hour wind gusts. Guys, if you've ever experienced 35 mile an hour winds, good luck throwing a football, more than 20 yards in that weather. It's going to be really tough to throw the ball in those games. App, by the way, 5-star app, by the way. Thank you, man. Yeah, the best way you guys could possibly support me, checking out the WalterPicks app. It's free to download in the iOS and Android app stores. The link to it is right in the YouTube description, right in the TikTok bio. And I spent the last 3 years of my life helping build this app. It's going to get to all your start sit questions. It's going to get to all of your trade questions. It's going to get to all your waiver wire questions. It's going to give you personalized waiver wire advice every single week. It's going to give you player prop advice. We just launched a bet tracker too to help monitor how much you're winning and losing in your sports betting. So yeah, check out the WalterPicks app. It's free. Appreciate that comment here. All right, RB2 with Kyron and James Conner hurt. Yeah, Brees on a bye. Brutal bye weeks and brutal injuries to deal with too. Jordan Mason, Jamal Williams, Tyler Algier, Keontae Ingram, PPR. Yeah, I'm going Tyler Algier here for sure over all of these guys. And then Keontae Ingram, I don't want to start Jamal Williams at all tonight. And he absolutely has a touchdown ceiling, but like his floor is so low coming off the injury and with Alvin Kamara back and how bad he played before. And I think Elijah Mitchell is probably going to outtouch Jordan Mason. He's the guy I think I prefer a little bit there as well. So yeah, I think I go Keontae Ingram. I'm not a huge Keontae Ingram fan this week either, but I think in PPR he can at least catch some passes. I go with the last two running backs here. Okay. Trade questions. Do I give away Kenneth Walker and Debo for Saquon? What are your thoughts on Walker for the rest of the year / his schedule? Yeah, so I just posted the longest TikTok of my career. I've been doing this for over 3 years now. Making short form content for over 3 years. I just posted the longest video of my life on TikTok. It was 4.5 minutes of just straight ripping through trade advice. And in that video, I broke down 19 players, 19 that I'm trading for. Kenneth Walker was not on that list. He's having a good season, but his playoff schedule is not fantastic. He is playing 3. Hide this comment for a second. Hide this banner as well. He's playing 3 pretty decent defenses in weeks 14, 15, 16. The 49ers, which ranked 12th against running backs. The Eagles, which ranked 2nd. And then the Titans, who I think their defensive line is a little bit better than this is giving credit for. A lot of their fantasy points have come through receiving. He gets them in week 16 and then the Steelers in week 17. So yeah, just not a great rest of season schedule. A really good week this week though. Honestly, an interesting sell high candidate here, but the offensive line's obviously been great. Kenneth's been great. I don't think he's a must sell by any means, but he was not on that list of guys that I would trade for. And I listed 19 with great playoff schedules. So definitely go watch that video on the @WalterPicks TikTok for some trade advice. Sam, big news. I got a trade. I got Bijan and Garrett Wilson for Madison, Godwin, Palmer, and Kmet. Bijan and Garrett Wilson, that's insane. What a haul, Yarshman. Good work. I'm sure the WalterPicks app, Trade Analyzer, absolutely loved that one. Olave or Ayuk? Yeah, so you got to go Ayuk. You cannot bench Ayuk this week. Absolutely not. Has to be started against the Vikings. There's thoughts on Debo rest of season. Every week I'm saying Debo's a must bench, but I actually do like him rest of season. He's one of the players that I talked about in my last video. Well, go watch that if you're looking for trade advice, by the way. 19 players that you can trade for to help increase your chances of winning your fantasy league. And yeah, Debo Samuel's one of those guys. He's a great playoff schedule, but he just needs to get back to full health. So hopefully he can do that. Taysom, Michael Mayer, John New at tight end. Yeah, God, Taysom Hill question, man. Let's pull up the Taysom Hill game log because absolutely ridiculous stuff here. From the Taysom Hill usage, it felt like this wasn't going to be a Taysom season. At the first few, really like the first month of the season, really just until last week. I mean, what's going on here with the Taysom Hill usage? He has all of a sudden a huge role, and now Jamal Williams returns too, but the role was in the receiving game. He played 38% of the snaps last week, Taysom Hill. That was the most of the season. He ran a season high 62% on 62% of the dropbacks for the Saints. He was running a route. I mean, he is definitely better to be out there than Foster Moreau. He looked great in comparison to Foster Moreau, who's also a tight end for the Saints. No Jawan Johnson again tonight. I think go Taysom Hill in that question. I was just looking at Taysom Hill. Yeah, it is fine. He's in the must bench category for most start sits, but I think like he has a high enough ceiling. He had 7 catches last week, guys, 8 targets, 17% target share. And he could get some carries too. He probably won't with Jamal Williams back. He only had 1 carry last week. But yeah, with that receiving role and how much he played and how many routes he ran, he's definitely is startable in some spots, depending on how bleak your tight end start sits are. Cousins or Derek Carr PPR league? I think I'd go Derek Carr over Kirk Cousins personally. And Cousins, the numbers are going to look way better for him, but he also is without Justin Jefferson now against a decent 49ers defense on Monday night. Should I start Christian Kirk or DJ Moore? Moore has played with backups all his career and still performed well. Yeah, this is a really interesting point. This is. And DJ Moore was targeted really, really heavily once this Tyler Bagent, I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly, and I don't. I'll figure it out if he can last a couple of games. This is a Division II quarterback we're talking about. This is pretty bleak here for DJ Moore, but yeah, I think got targeted maybe 3 or 4 like in a row right when this kid came in. So yeah, he definitely can still perform well. I still think Christian Kirk's a better play than him tonight, though, given the risk of the Bears' offense and just the floor, honestly, that Christian Kirk's had. Like, let's compare these guys. Christian Kirk's not a bad option. If we're comparing DJ Moore against fringe guys, then I think that makes sense. But DJ Moore and Christian Kirk, I mean, they've actually been. Yeah, Christian Kirk's got 5 straight games over 13 points. I mean, really, if you remove week 1, Christian Kirk's been a solid wide receiver too. Week 1, he did nothing. But yeah, I think Christian Kirk's a start for me personally over DJ Moore, given the quarterback situation there. I know he's performed well with bad QBs in the past, but I'd still prefer him not to have a bad QB. Hey, Sam, there's an football question. Trevor Lawrence or Goff? Yeah, so you can't start Goff. And the reason you can't start Goff is the weather in that game that's currently projected. There's some significant weather that you guys got to be aware of potentially in this week. And I always get a little scared talking about weather on Thursday. We're 3 days away. The weather can absolutely change. But right now, there is concerning weather in the forecast for the times of these games. The Commanders and Giants, significant wind gusts at 35 miles an hour. The Bills and Patriots, wind gusts at 30 miles an hour. The Ravens and Lions, wind gusts at 30 miles an hour. So yeah, I would play Derek Carr over Jared Goff for that reason. I am nervous about the wind in that one. Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff? Yeah, I think I'd go Kirk over Goff for that same reason. Hello, Sam. Should I start A.J. Dillon or Calvin Ridley? Yeah, it's got to be Calvin Ridley. Got to be Ridley over A.J. Dillon. Tonight, I think he's got a much, much, much higher ceiling, Jaden. All right. Let me break down some interesting stats about this game real quick. So the Saints, guys, they are the last team in the NFL that has had every game go under their total this season. Every single week. We're in week 7, 6 consecutive weeks now. The Saints maybe had a bye in there. Has gone under the over-under. And the over-under tonight's not that high. I think it's like right around 41, 42. Honestly, I would take the over. I think this trend ends tonight. But interesting to note that the Saints games have been pretty low scoring this season. Also, Derek Carr Guys, he's completed only 44% of his red zone passes. That ranked 29th in the NFL. And there's been some brutal quarterback play in the NFL this season. And still, Derek Carr ranks third worst in red zone completion percentage. This team gets so many yards and then just refuses to score. That's been the story of this team this whole season. I think that is bound to change sometime pretty soon, which is why I think Derek Carr's a solid start tonight. Derek Carr's coming off by far his best game of the season. They just could not score when they got in the red zone. And if that changes, Carr could have a massive fantasy game. I think that's why I'm starting him over Trevor Lawrence. Neither Derek Carr or Trevor Lawrence have a game over 20 fantasy points this season, but the Jaguars have allowed more 20 fantasy point games than the Saints have. It's a better matchup for Carr than it is Trevor Lawrence. And you look at this game last week against the Texans, who are ranked similarly to the Jaguars secondary. He threw the ball 50 times for 353 yards, 518 air yards. He just only had one passing touchdown, despite all these yards, because they could not score in the red zone. But yeah, Derek Carr, surrounded by super elite talent. Trevor Lawrence, of course, has good talent around him as well. But I'm definitely nervous about his knee injury. I would play Lawrence over Goff. I would play Lawrence over Sam Howell. I would play Lawrence over all these guys that are in potentially really bad weather games. I'm playing Lawrence over, Jared Goff. I'm playing Derek Carr over Jared Goff. I'm playing Derek Carr over Trevor Lawrence, by the way. And I played both those guys also over Tyrod Taylor and Sam Howell as well. These aren't elite names I'm naming, obviously, but these are some guys I would start the quarterbacks over tonight. Saints D or Browns D? Got to be Browns D for sure. The Browns defense is one of the best defenses in the league. Hey, Sam, best app ever for fantasy. Isaiah, appreciate that, man. The WalterPicks app, if you guys haven't checked it out, go check it out. It's free. It's on the iOS and Android app store. It's going to help you with fantasy and props and everything, and betting and DFS. Everything it's going to help you with. And again, it's free to try. Would you trade Waddle, Nico, and Gibbs for Puka, Pacheco, and Achane? Waddle, Nico, and Gibbs for Puka, Pacheco, and Achane. Now let's do this trade analyzer on the YouTube Live. Guys, we're watching live on TikTok. Come to the YouTube Live. I'm telling you, it's a better viewing experience. I can share my screen. We're about to analyze a trade on the YouTube Live, and you just can't see it on the TikTok Live because I can't share my screen. So it's Waddle, Nico Collins, definitely some good receivers here. Some good receivers here that you're giving up. We got Nico Collins and Gibbs. I really do like trading for Jahmyr Gibbs, not trading him away right now. Again, I just posted my longest ever video on TikTok yesterday. It took me maybe 4 hours to make, and it was 4 minutes long. But it is 19 players that you should trade for in fantasy right now, and a bunch of actually these guys in this question are on that in that video. I think Puka Nacua is a good player to be targeting right now. I also like trading for Achane if you have a good chance to make the playoffs. And also the thing about the WalterPicks trade analyzer that really makes it unmatched is if you sync your league, it'll show you not only the trade values, but how much this trade will help or hurt your rest of season projected points for your starting lineup. All right, so yeah, the Achane side wins this trade. Pacheco is more valuable than Jahmyr Gibbs. That makes a lot of sense. Guys, the ceiling for Gibbs is that he grows into the receiving role we've seen him have in just a couple of games. Like the target share game, I said this in the video I made, but Jahmyr Gibbs, guys, there's only 5 running backs this entire season that have a game with a target share of at least 26%. Only 5 running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of them. And this is why we were excited about Jahmyr Gibbs in the first place, was his receiving upside. He was a really good receiving back in college. He was a better receiving back than Bijan Robinson, who's been a really elite receiving back this season. Jahmyr Gibbs, listen to the list of guys that have done this. 26% at least target share among the running back position. You want these guys in PPR leagues. Jahmyr Gibbs, Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Christian McCaffrey. And I think Bijan Robinson maybe did it once too. I think those are the 5. Maybe it was Austin Eckler. But, a very elite list that Jahmyr Gibbs is on. But, yeah, Pacheco definitely has a higher ceiling because Pacheco can catch passes and run. And Jahmyr Gibbs is just never going to see 15-plus carries. Like, is he going to have a game this season with, a huge target share and a bunch of carries? It's just they aren't going to give him that insane usage that Monty's going to get, that we're probably going to see Craig Reynolds get a decent amount of run this week too. So, yeah, this is a good trade, especially if you're looking like you're going to make the fantasy playoffs. Go trade for Devon Achane. Go trade for Justin Jefferson too. I think that is a very reasonable thing to do. All right, let's talk more about this game today. Olave or Zay Flowers? Yeah, I'm going Olave over Zay Flowers for sure tonight, considering the concerning weather for that Ravens game in terms of wins. So yeah, I am going Olave over Zay. I'm going Michael Thomas over Zay. How is Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley must starts, but Trevor Lawrence isn't? Yeah, so both guys can have good games without Trevor Lawrence having a good fantasy day. I'm nervous about the knee injury for Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, these players are somewhat connected, but both Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley can have very good fantasy days without scoring touchdowns. That's just really not the case for Trevor Lawrence. And yeah, he has not the best matchup against the Saints. This isn't the best matchup. Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley are really closer to must starts than Trevor Lawrence too, just because of the 6 bye weeks this week. That really affects the wide receiver position much more than the quarterback position. Laporta or Evan Ingram? Yeah, I think I lean towards Evan Ingram over Laporta. It's close. I'm nervous about the weather in that Lions game too, so that has me concerned off the get-go. And Evan Ingram, I think, has a slightly lower ceiling than Laporta, but a similar floor. And yeah, it's got to be Evan Ingram over Sam Laporta. I'd go Ingram over most tight ends. Walter has him as tight end 3 ahead of Mark Andrews. I don't know if I agree with that. That's pretty close. I guess with the weather, that's probably the weather update there for the Ravens offense. Kind of does make sense, honestly, with the wind, if that wind does come to fruition. So Evan Ingram's a must start. Only starting Kelsey, Hawk, and I would start Andrews over him still, I think. But I'm not starting George Hill over him. I'm not starting Dallas Goedert, who might not even play, and I'm not starting Sam Laporta. Would you trade Jaylen Warren for Achane? Yeah, I definitely would do that. I think it's a fantastic trade. And I just broke down in the last video I made why I think trading for Devon Achane makes a lot of sense if you are going or likely to make the fantasy football playoffs. Start Dobbs or Shaheed at flex? I'd go Dobbs. I really don't think Shaheed has a high enough floor to be started. I think Dobbs at least has a reasonable floor. We've seen Shaheed have good fantasy games. I think 3 out of his 5 or 6 games have been good, and the other few games have been close to six points. The floor is pretty low for both guys, but yeah, it's a better matchup, I think, for Dobbs this week. Hey, Sam, need some serious Thursday night football help. Got to start a waiver wire quarterback. Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson if he plays, Russ or T-Law tonight. Yeah, 6-point QB, passing touchdowns, and where do you put Stafford along with those guys? Yeah, Stafford, I think, is ahead of Watson, ahead of Trevor Lawrence this week. I do like Derek Carr more than Trevor Lawrence as well. I like Derek Carr more than Deshaun Watson. You cannot rely on Deshaun Watson. So remove him from this consideration. He might not play. Like, there's a decent chance he doesn't play. It's just so hard to trust Watson playing. And even if he plays, like, what type of Deshaun Watson are we getting at this point? I have no idea. I don't think he can be trusted at all. I think he should stay on the waiver wire in most leagues. Russell Wilson's a close one that I think is the answer here. Let's actually do this comparison. Russell Wilson versus Derek Carr versus Trevor Lawrence. Because I think Walter likes Trevor Lawrence more than Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr more than Trevor Lawrence this week. And I think we both will agree that Russ is probably the best option here. Yeah, well, Russ ranks as QB7. Russ has had a good fantasy season, guys. As bad as the Broncos have been, as bad of a bleak of a situation as it looks. Let me show this here on the YouTube Live. Russell Wilson, guys, he's gotten at least 15 points in every game. He's had 2 games now with at least 22 fantasy points. It's not a great matchup for him. Top 5 secondary here against the Packers. But yeah, the Broncos defense is just so bad that they're forced to throw a ton every single week. And that hasn't come to fruition in the last couple of games for the Broncos. This last game was a really windy game, so I kind of removed that one. The game against the Jets is a little bit concerning, but he still threw two passing touchdowns. I think I'd lean Russ, but yeah, he's definitely I think closer than Walter's making it seem here between him, Derek Carr. But yeah, I'm playing Derek Carr over Trevor Lawrence. I'm playing Russell Wilson over both of them. Will Agnew have a good game tonight? Probably not. No. Sutton or Debo? I don't think Debo can be trusted at all. Devontae Smith or DK Metcalf? I think it's Metcalf over Devonta. It's close, though. Trevor Lawrence or Goff? I think I would go Trevor Lawrence over Goff. I'm very nervous about the weather in that Lions game. Rashee Rice or Josh Palmer? That one's pretty close, too. That same game. What do you think about Gibbs this week? I really hope he plays. I really hope Jahmyr Gibbs plays because this is a good spot with David Montgomery out. But I don't picture a huge workload for him. I'm just hoping he can get 6 or 7 targets and call it a day, and that'll be a good enough fantasy day for me. But yeah, I don't expect Jahmyr Gibbs to get more than 10 carries with David Montgomery out. Why say Jags D? Because the Saints offense is coming off their best game of the season by far. Jordan Love or Trevor Lawrence? Yeah, it's got to be Jordan Love against the Broncos for sure over Trevor Lawrence. I need 2 out of these guys, half-point PPR, Deontay Johnson, Gabe Davis, Josh Downs, and Michael Wilson. Yeah, Gabe Davis I think is interesting. I'm nervous with the wind in that game, but the Patriots are going to have so much attention on Steph Diggs in this one. They really are, like, similar to what we saw with Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams last week. They just double team the top receiver, and it definitely leaves a lot of opportunity for number 2 receivers against the Pats. But the weather in that game does have me concerned a little bit overall. If Deontay Johnson plays, I think I would start him here. And Josh Downs, I think, is pretty close as well. But depending on the weather in this game, Mo, I think I'd go Gabe Davis. If the weather is like under 25 mile an hour wind gusts, if it's over, I think I'd go Josh Downs. Hey, Sam. Juice, Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, Jerome Ford, half PPR. I think you got to bench Michael Thomas in this one, Andrew. I think I would go Chris Godwin and Jerome Ford over Michael Thomas. I do like Michael Thomas tonight. I think his floor is good, but the ceiling to me is higher for Godwin and Ford. Ford is a good matchup against the Colts. Not a great matchup for Godwin against the Falcons, but he's been pretty good this season. Definitely better than Michael Thomas has been. I hesitate on saying bench Michael Thomas because Michael Thomas is actually the free player prop of the night. Over 4.5 receptions. Guys, we're 75% on these free player props. Michael Thomas has had at least 4 catches in every game this season. Ayuk or Ridley. Got to be Ayuk. Do not bench Ayuk for literally anyone in this game except for Travis Etienne, I think. Pretty much everybody, you got to be starting Ayuk. For sure. Why bench Rashid Shaheed? Yeah, he's got an interesting ceiling. He's a decent flex play, but I think he's got a really low floor and not someone I would prefer to start. How about picking up Bucks? Yeah, I like the Bucks defense. Ridley or Addison? It's Addison over Ridley. You got to start Addison this week. He is going to have some huge games. I think Addison is a very, very good player to have in your fantasy team right now. We're sitting the Jaguars defense. The Saints offense is coming off their best game of the season. Who do you like in daily fantasy for tonight? Yeah, so my favorite DFS plays tonight, I think probably Derek Carr and then some combination of him with Olave, him with Michael Thomas, him with Alvin Kamara. And then I think I'd run it back with Ridley too, ceiling-wise. Taysom Hill's an interesting dart throw. I would not go near Tank Bigsby tonight in DFS. I would not go near Jamal Williams either in DFS. Taysom Hill, maybe you can mix him in if you really want to go crazy. It's tough in these tournaments to differentiate on the Thursday nights. Should I start Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, or Ayuk as my flex? Yeah, I think it goes Waddle then Ayuk. And really both need to be started this week. I also have Puka and Cooper Kupp as my, I think I would start Waddle and Ayuk maybe over Puka this week. Yo, Beast, DK, Addison, or London at flex. We got to get to the Thursday night start sits here because we got a lot of Thursday night start sits here in the comments. I do see Trevor Lawrence versus Goff. I would go Lawrence over Goff. Hill for Eckler is a fair trade, but I don't love it. Ford or Ridley at flex. Yeah, I would lean Ridley over Ford at flex, but I would lean Ford over Michael Thomas. I think I would rank the receivers tonight as Olave, then Kirk, then Ridley, then Michael Thomas. Okay. Yo, Beast, DK, Addison, or London at flex. Yeah, I would go Addison here. I'm not benching Addison this week against the 49ers. I've been here for 20 minutes. Thanks, man. Should I start Jordan Addison, Tyler Lockett, or Christian Kirk? Yeah, again, I'm not benching Addison. I'm playing Addison over Christian Kirk. I'm playing Addison over Calvin Ridley. I'm playing Addison over Michael Thomas. I'm not playing Addison, I don't think, over Olave, but it's pretty close. I wouldn't bench Devontae Adams this week. Feels like a squeaky wheel inherited for him. You're definitely playing Christian Kirk over Dallas Goedert. Rashee Rice or Curtis Samuel. I would lean Rashee Rice. Ridley or Waddle. Got to be Waddle over Ridley. I'm playing DK Metcalf over Ridley as well. I would play Derek Carr over Sam Howell. Some really bad weather projected in that Sam Howell game. In the Commanders-Giants game, sustained winds around 20 miles an hour and wind gusts up to 35 in that Commanders-Giants game. Avoid those passing offenses at all costs. In my opinion, too risky. Obviously, the weather can change from between now and then, though. Pitts and Christian Watson or Laporta in Downs. I would go with the Pitts side here. I think Watson and Downs are not very close in terms of their ceilings. Laporta is definitely better than Pitts, but Pitts' ceiling and Laporta's ceiling is honestly pretty comparable week to week. The floors are much different. But yeah, I would take the Christian Watson side. Hey, Sam, do you think I should start Michael Thomas or Javonte Williams at my flex? Already starting Kamara. Oh, yeah, Javonte's a tough one. Let's do this comparison in the WalterPicks app right now on the YouTube live. We're live on TikTok and YouTube right now, by the way, guys. Shout out to everybody in these lives. This is my favorite thing to do each week. The Sunday morning lives are my stone cold favorite. Thursday morning or Thursday nights are a close second as we get ready for just an exciting week 7. We got 6 buys this week. There's some tough decisions. We're going to do Michael Thomas or Javonte Williams. Kamara's got to be starting tonight, guys. The PPR ceiling and floor is just so incredible. I'm definitely nervous and watching closely, though, about Jamal Williams' goal line role this game with him coming back for the first time. First time we're seeing Jamal Williams and Kamara together this season. It's got to be Michael Thomas over Javonte Williams. And it's not a terrible matchup for Javonte. The Packers have not been great against running backs, and he did play 35% of the snaps last week. That should go up, I think, another week removed from being out. But they're going to play Julian McLaughlin. They're going to play Samaje Perine too. I think you got to go MT over Javonte. Did he not say Pittman? I think Pittman should be started over Christian Kirk, over Calvin Ridley, over Michael Thomas, and I don't think over Chris Olave, but it's close. Should I start the Jags, Browns, Lions, or Pats defense? Yeah, I think you go with the Browns. The Browns have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Jerome Ford or Olave? Yeah, I go Olave over Jerome Ford if that's a PPR league. If it's not a PPR league, it's definitely much closer. Who do you think wins? Yeah, I got the Saints in this game. I think the Saints are pretty underrated. And part of the reason I think they're underrated is they've been so bad in the red zone. Like just a little bit more success in the red zone. And I think they people would have a much, much different perception of the Saints. Derek Carr ranks third worst in the NFL in red zone completion percentage, 44%, just egregious accuracy from Derek Carr, ability to complete passes for Derek Carr in the red zone. But he's coming off his best game of the season. He threw the ball 50 times last week. He threw over 350 yards. He only had one touchdown because they could not score in the red zone. But as soon as that changes, I think the Saints are going to be a tough team to beat. Trade. I need a running back bad. Would you trade Keenan Allen for Brian Robinson? Or that's Bijan Robinson. I think it's fair. That's Brian Robinson. Never discuss trades with this person again. Would you still have Diggs? Would still have Diggs and Waddle. Yeah, I think it's fine to trade Keenan for Bijan if you still have Diggs and Waddle. I think that's reasonable. I think it's a fair trade. This is how trade should be. This is a fair deal. Judy or London, PPR. Oh God, man, I'm not prepared for the Jerry Judy questions yet this week. I mean, it's not a fantastic matchup for Judy. Drake London's been playing pretty well. I think you go Drake London over Judy right now. I think that's reasonable. I'm playing Michael Thomas over Mondre. I still want nothing to do with Mondre. T-Law or Love? I'm going Love over T-Law. Eckler and Devontae Smith for Jay Jettas. And JT also Dobbs. I think I like the Eckler side a bit more there, unless you really are likely to make the playoffs. If you're very likely to make the playoffs, then I think it's fine. JT, I think, can scale up to being a top 5 running back again in fantasy. And I think it could happen as soon as this week. But he's not that yet. And Eckler is, I think, already there. I get wanting to trade Devontae. It's a fair trade if you're likely to make the playoffs. Hey, Sam, Thursday Night Football question. Derek Carr, Matt Stafford. I Puka and MT. Who do I stack? Really interesting one here. I personally think this one's super, super close. Let's do an in-depth dive on this one because I want to start Stafford in general with the weapons he has and in a plus matchup against the Steelers. I think Derek Carr's a good play tonight coming off his best game of the season. Walter says it's not very close. And wow, yeah, I mean, look at the differences here. The range of outcomes is so much different. Wow, really low bust percentage here for Stafford. I guess he's been very steady this season, and yeah, he has. He's been right in the 13 to 17 point range every single week. I think you go Stafford. I think you go Stafford over Carr. I think you go with the Stafford Puka Nacua stack over the Derek Carr stack. I do like Derek Carr tonight, but yeah, not more than Stafford this week. Hey Sam, would you start Kirk or Myers? I think this one is a tough call. We don't even know what quarterback is starting yet for the Raiders. Let's do this comparison because Jacoby's been great, but Christian Kirk, guys, has been good too. I think I lean Christian Kirk over Jacoby Myers personally. That's my gut reaction to that question, but let me look at some more of the numbers here and see if that changes my mind, and I don't think it's going to. Yeah, it's Christian Kirk over Jacoby Myers. Got to go Kirk tonight. It's a pretty good matchup for the Saints receivers. The Saints secondary is pretty good. It's not like the best matchup here for Christian Kirk. They rank 13th against receivers. It's a better matchup for Jacoby. But yeah, I still think Kirk, he's just a better option than Jacoby Myers. Wow, Jacoby, I mean, he's having a huge season. Some of these numbers, he's crushing Christian Kirk in. It's just the quarterback situation for the Raiders has me at least a little concerned, and also all the complaining from Devontae Adams. I feel like actually will earn Devontae Adams more targets this week, which is not good for Jacoby either. So yeah, I think I'd lean Christian Kirk. It's definitely a close one. What are your thoughts on Gibbs with Monty out? I'm super excited, man. I just hope he plays. I hope he stays healthy, and I hope he gets a lot of targets. Hit the follow button if you're watching live on TikTok, guys. Hit the subscribe and like button if you're watching live on YouTube. We're heading towards the tail end of this live stream. It's going to be a fun game tonight. Debo or for Devonta Smith is fair. Yeah, I think I would take the Devonta Smith side of that trade. It's super close. Honestly, Debo has a really good playoff schedule, but I think I prefer Devonta over Debo at this point. All right, so let me run through some other thoughts here about the game tonight. So yeah, the red zone completion percentage has been horrible for Derek Carr. I still think the Saints win this game, and I expect this to change and regress a little bit towards like a more reasonable, 50-60% completion percentage from Derek Carr in the red zone. He ranks third worst in red zone completion percentage this season. The Saints are the last team to every single game for the Saints has hit the under. The under tonight's like around 42 points. I think the over hits. I think this trend ends sooner rather than later. The player prop of the day, Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions. Guys, Michael Thomas has had at least 4 catches in every single game this season. This screenshot you're seeing on the TikTok live is from the player prop evaluator in the WalterPicks app, which you can try the app for completely free. So go check that out if you haven't checked that out yet. But Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions is a fantastic prop. Tonight, the Jags have not been great against receivers, and the floor for Michael Thomas is 4 catches. Give me props where the floor is half a yard or half a stat, below the line. I want those all day long. So give me Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions. I'm 9-3, 75% on the free player props this season. I would play Chris Godwin over Michael Thomas. I would play Ayuk over Michael Thomas. I would play Ayuk over Christian Kirk. I'm playing Ayuk over basically everybody. How can you justify having Jags wide receivers as must start and having T-Law as must bench? LOL. Yeah, it's really the injury concern for Trevor Lawrence. And also, it is definitely possible for receivers to have good fantasy games and quarterbacks to still have bad fantasy games. And yeah, I'm just generally nervous about really the main reason that I think Trevor Lawrence can be a must bench while Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk can be must starts is like Ridley and Kirk. Maybe there's not a huge chance they both do well, but there's definitely each individually a pretty high ceiling there. Plus, with 6 bye weeks, that takes away 18 startable receivers. It only takes away 6 starting QBs. I just think there's a lot better QB options out there on the waiver wire in comparison to Trevor Lawrence, and there's just not for Christian Kirk and Ridley. So yeah, it has to do too kind of with their place within their own positions. It's pretty nuanced. But yeah, I don't love Trevor Lawrence as an option tonight, but I do think Christian Kirk and Ridley should be started in most spots, especially in PPR leagues. But yeah, there's definitely outcomes here tonight where Christian Kirk has a huge game or Calvin Ridley has a huge game, and Trevor Lawrence still doesn't have a big game. Ridley or Kirk, yeah, I lean Kirk over Ridley tonight. Rashid Shaheed just has too low of a floor to start, in my opinion. I got Debo and Christian Kirk. If Debo doesn't play, I'm left with Osborne or Powell. Yeah, definitely don't risk it with Debo. Play Christian Kirk over Debo Samuel, 100%. Debo has been a must bench each of the last 3 weeks because he's not at full health. He's not been at full health over the last 3 games. I mean, you couldn't be more obvious just looking at the numbers. He played 62%. He ran a route in 62% of dropbacks in week 5. He only had 3 catches, 55 yards. Last week, he gets hurt again, barely plays. He's now had under 2 points in 2 of his last 3 games. And he might not play. He really might not play. And even if he plays, it's a good matchup, but even if he plays, he might be a decoy like he was back in week 4. So yeah, I'm nervous overall about Debo. Outlook on Kyler rest of the season. Would you start him first game back off waivers? Yeah, so he's not going to be back this week. I think he will be startable over some guys first game back. I don't know who he's playing. I forget if it's a good or bad matchup, but I'm very excited for Kyler Murray, and he absolutely can become a top 10 quarterback in fantasy pretty quickly. Michael Thomas is a must start. Yep, he's got a really high floor. Tonight, he's had at least 4 catches in every single game this season. The ceiling's just not that high. How you feel about Kamara over 4.5 receptions? Yeah, I feel okay about that one. I mean, he's been targeted a ton. We know Derek Carr has a long history of throwing to running backs. That's why Kamara's RB3 tonight. And yeah, Alvin Kamara's had now 2 games with at least 7 catches in his 3 games this season. He had 1 game with only 3 catches. I am a tiny bit nervous just because Jamal's back tonight. And also the Jaguars defense has been much better against running backs than they have against passing and receiving in wide receivers just in general. So yeah, I think Alvin Kamara, line 4.5 receptions. He probably will get 5-6 catches in this game. But I feel better about the Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions line. Why bench Jags D? Yeah, the Saints are coming off their best offensive game of the season by far. They threw for 350 plus yards last week. Mostert, Gibbs, and Javonte, considering their matchups. I know Mostert's a must start. Yep, he's playing Philly. He's still a must start. And then Gibbs, I'd play over Javonte, I think. This week, Javonte has the best matchup, maybe of the group, but I don't think he can be started playing only 35% of snaps last week. Evan Ingram or Dallas Goedert? I'd go Ingram over Goddard. I'm playing Marquise Brown over Calvin Ridley. Who's going to win? I think the Saints are going to win. I think they're going to cover the 2-point spread. Aaron Jones or Chris Olave? Oh, yeah, that's actually a really close one. With Jones against the Broncos, I kind of think you got to go Aaron Jones. And it's a little scary because Jones is still technically questionable. Yeah, I mean, actually, just given the injury status for him, you just can't. You got to go Olave over Aaron Jones. It's tough. I have a feeling Sunday morning I'm going to be telling a lot of people to have a lot of confidence in Aaron Jones, but he's still questionable technically as of this moment. Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk, the guys, they have high enough ceilings in this game to be worthwhile in fantasy. This is a screenshot from the WalterPicks app, which is free to download in the TikTok bot if you're watching live on TikTok. If you're watching live on YouTube, you just see me point up in the air, but I'll talk through it anyways. The Christian Kirk versus Calvin Ridley tonight. I'm going Kirk. He has got a safer floor, in my opinion, than Calvin Ridley. And he's also been better this season. Christian Kirk's been better than Ridley this season. More yards per game, more fantasy points per game, more target share per game. Calvin Ridley does have him on air yards, though. So yeah, I think that Kirk is a better option than Ridley. I think Kirk has a better floor than Ridley. They both have pretty good ceilings, though. Both guys could go 100 plus yards and a touchdown tonight for sure. Even in a tough matchup, both guys are capable of that. I think Michael Thomas has a safe floor, not a huge, exciting ceiling. Olave got to be started because of his floor and ceiling. Evan Ingram has a really good floor. Kamara and Etienne have massive floors and ceilings, need to be started in almost all spots. And I like Derek Carr's ceiling tonight. His floor is a little bit scary overall, but it's a good matchup for Derek Carr. He's coming off his best game of the season. He just needs to do a little bit better in the red zone, and he will have huge games. And I think Trevor Lawrence can be a must bench with these two receivers as must starts plus Evan Ingram, because the ceiling is independent, guys. Ridley can go for 150 yards and a touchdown, and Trevor Lawrence can throw for 170 yards and a touchdown in the game, not be a guy you want to start in fantasy. So these things are a little bit, they're attached in some ways, but they're not attached in all ways. Ridley can be a really, really good wide receiver start, and still Lawrence could be a bad start at quarterback. Do I start Mixon and Pickens for Jacobs and Njoku? Please respond. Sorry, do I trade Mixon and Pickens for Jacobs and Njoku? Yeah, I would do this one. I think offloading Mixon makes a lot of sense. He's been really inefficient. I have more confidence in Jacobs to become efficient again than I do Joe Mixon, just because of their ages and what we saw Jacobs do last season. But yeah, they're pretty comparable, honestly, overall. I think that's a fine trade. Hey, Sam, which two do I start between these two? Eckler, Kamara, and Mostert. You got to go Eckler and Kamara. Both top 3 running backs this week. I think Christian Watson should go over Ridley. I'm playing Ayuk over Ridley as well. Do not bench Christian Watson. Don't bench Jordan Addison, and don't bench Brandon Ayuk. I think Marquise Brown, also a really good option this week. I'd be very hesitant to bench Marquise Brown tonight for Calvin Ridley. I'd be hesitant to bench Marquise Brown for Michael Thomas too. I think Christian Kirk and Marquise Brown is super, super close. There is expected to be potentially some serious rain in that Cardinals game. Saints defense going to go off tonight. Just got the feeling. Yeah, I kind of have that feeling too. I got Lawrence as a must bench, but the Saints defense is good. The Saints have a good defense. They've been really, really good against the run. They've been okay against the pass. The Jaguars defense has been good against the run, bad against the pass. So yeah, I'm taking the Saints -2 in this one. I do think the Saints win this game. I do think the Saints are one of the more underrated teams, honestly, in the NFL. And the free player prop is also Michael Thomas, over 4.5 receptions. He's had at least 4 catches in every game this year. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I appreciate every single one of you. This is something I look forward to all week. I'm looking forward to already the Sunday morning live, which will start basically when I wake up, right around 9 a.m. Sunday morning Eastern time. Make sure you tune into that. We'll break down every single game, every single start sit. We'll have a better weather report from Weatherman Sam Sunday morning too, to get more clarity on a lot of the scary weather games this week. I think you got to be really cautious benching guys tonight for players and receivers in the Commanders-Giants game. I would not start Sam Howell or Tyrod Taylor, Terry McLaurin, Wando Robinson, Darren Waller. I'm nervous for all of them. Wind gusts around 35 miles an hour in that game. Bills-Patriots. I think you start Steph Diggs, start Josh Allen still, and Gabe Davis is in the consideration, but there's going to be 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts in that game. Ravens and Lions, 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts in that game projected right now too. I'm nervous about Zay Flowers. I still think Lamar's a better start than the quarterbacks tonight. I'm nervous about Jared Goff. Don't think he can be started over the quarterbacks tonight. I'm still going to start Amon-Ra over basically all the receivers tonight. And still same thing with Mark Andrews as well. I think I'm okay starting Evan Ingram over Laporta, though, with this weather report too. But we'll get to that Sunday morning. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Time is the most valuable thing we have. If I didn't get to your start sit question, go to the WalterPicks app. It'll save you so much time. It's going to be the fastest start sit advice you've ever gotten in the WalterPicks app for free, in the YouTube description, in the TikTok bio. Guys, time is the most valuable thing we have. Thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight. Good luck tonight, everyone. I will see you all Sunday morning.